Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive into the world of biochar. We're going to be taking a look at the top news, research, and blog posts of the week, according to the readers of Biochar today. And we've got quite a mix for you all today.
Yeah, should be fun.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about a teenage CEO who is actually transforming the world of farming with biochar. Pretty incredible.
Looking forward to that.
Also, the ins and outs of using biochar for soil remediation, always a hot topic.
Right.
And even a look at how biochar could actually play a role in animal feed.
Very cool.
Yeah, so let's just jump right in, shall we?
Let's do it.
So our first story takes us to California's almond orchards, where 16-year-old CEO Harper Moss is leading the charge in sustainable farming with carbonzero.eco. Now, this company is turning something with typically considered waste, almond shells, into valuable biochar. And get this, Moss was actually inspired to start carbonzero.eco after taking a design class and participating in a social entrepreneurship program.
Wow, that's really interesting. That's a great example of how just like seemingly unrelated experiences can spark real innovation. And the impact here is pretty significant. Instead of almond shells just decomposing in landfills and releasing methane, carbonzero.eco is transforming them into a soil amendment that improves crop yields and soil health.
Right, it's like a win-win situation.
Yeah, and it's a really good model of a closed loop system where farmers buy back the biochar that was created from their own almond shells,
Wow.
fostering a truly sustainable cycle.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And it's not just the environmental impact that's impressive. I mean, carbonzero.eco is based in Williams, California, so they source their almond shells locally, which reduces transportation emissions. And check this out. They secured $3.5 million in seed funding from executives at Google, Amazon, and Meta.
Wow,
And they've landed over $7 million in contracts with California almond farmers.
that's amazing. That level of investment really speaks volumes about the confidence in Moss's vision and the growing recognition of biochar's potential. And with a goal of producing 30,000 tons of biochar annually, carbonzero.eco is on track to offset a remarkable 1.5 million tons of CO2 emissions each year.
Wow. That's really making a difference.
It's a truly inspiring story.
It really is. And it makes you wonder what other innovative solutions are out there just waiting to be discovered,
For sure.
especially by, young entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's remarkable what young entrepreneurs like Moss can accomplish. Really underscores the power of fresh perspectives in tackling complex challenges like climate change.
Right. Now, let's shift gears a little bit and delve into the world of soil remediation. A recent review in Economy by Majeska and Hanukkah explores the diverse ways biochar can be used to clean up contaminated soils. Now, I know our listeners are familiar with biochar, but for those who may just be tuning in, what exactly makes it so effective at tackling this particular issue?
Well, biochar's secret weapon really lies in its structure. You can almost imagine a microscopic sponge with countless tiny pores and a massive surface area. And this unique structure allows biochar to absorb pollutants, so it's effectively trapping heavy metals and other toxins, almost like a magnet.
Ah, so it's essentially giving contaminated soil a much-needed detox treatment.
Exactly.
Now, the review highlights some impressive benefits beyond just removing pollutants. It mentions that biochar can improve key soil parameters like pH, organic matter content, and something called cation exchange capacity.
Right?
Can you break down why cation exchange capacity is so important?
Yeah, so cation exchange capacity, or CEC, refers to the soil's ability to hold on to essential nutrients like calcium, magnesium, and potassium.
Okay.
Think of it as the soil's pantry.
Okay.
A higher CEC means the soil can store more nutrients, making them readily available to plants, and biochar increases that CEC, so that leads to improved nutrient retention and ultimately healthier and more productive plants.
So it's not just about removing the bad stuff, but also boosting the good stuff.
Right.
Biochar is really a multitasker when it comes to soil health. Now, are there any potential drawbacks to using biochar for soil remediation that we should be aware of?
Yeah, that's a really important question. Like any tool, biochar needs to be used responsibly. And the review emphasizes the importance of careful feedstock selection. So if biochar is produced from contaminated materials, it could potentially introduce more pollutants into the soil,
Right,
kind of defeating the purpose.
which would be counterproductive.
Exactly. There's also a need to consider potential emissions during biochar production and application, but with careful planning and responsible practices, these risks can be minimized. And that allows us to really harness biochar's remarkable potential for soil cleanup.
Right, so it sounds like striking the right balance is key. Now, for our third story, let's turn our attention to a review published in the Journal of Environmental Treatment Techniques by Ponraj and colleagues. This review dives deep into biochar's role in addressing two critical global challenges, soil degradation and climate change. I found it particularly interesting how the researchers link biochar's unique properties to its effectiveness in these areas.
Yeah, what's fascinating is how biochar tackles these issues on multiple fronts. Its high surface area and cation exchange capacity not only enhance soil fertility by holding onto nutrients, but also play a crucial role in reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
Hmm. It's like biochar is a master juggler,
Right,
effectively addressing both soil health and climate change simultaneously.
at the same time.
And it doesn't stop there. The review highlights biochar's ability to improve water retention in both sandy and clay soils. This aspect is particularly intriguing to me. Could you elaborate on how biochar achieves this?
Absolutely. Imagine you have two containers, one filled with marbles and the other with sand. Water would flow through the marbles much faster than through the sand, right?
Right.
So biochar acts like the marbles, creating spaces within the soil structure. This increased porosity and aeration improves water retention in sandy soils, which typically struggle to hold moisture. And then in clay soils, which are prone to compaction, biochar helps prevent this compaction and enhances drainage, preventing waterlogging and rootsification.
So biochar acts as a regulator, creating a more balanced water environment for both types of soil. It seems like biochar is a one-stop shop for soil improvement, addressing fertility, pollution, and even water management.
And let's not forget about carbon sequestration. By locking carbon into the soil for extended periods, biochar acts as a carbon sink, mitigating climate change. Now, the review acknowledges that more research is needed to optimize biochar production, application methods, and long-term impacts. However, the evidence so far points to biochar's incredible potential for sustainable environmental management.
Right. And it's clear that biochar is a powerful tool with far-reaching implications. Now, our final story for this segment takes us in a rather unexpected direction. Livestock farming, a study published in the Journal of Analytical and Applied Pyrolysis by Schauner and colleagues, investigates the potential of turning biorefinery waste into biochar suitable for animal feed.
Yeah, this research ties into the growing concept of green biofineries, which aim to extract valuable proteins from grasses and legumes. And the leftover high-fiber residue is typically discarded. But these researchers saw an opportunity. They used a process called pyrolysis to transform this residue into biochar. And that essentially involved heating the material in a low-oxygen environment.
And the study found that the resulting biochar was not only safe, but also met quality standards for animal feed.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting. While more research is needed to understand the long-term effects, there's growing excitement around the potential benefits of adding biochar to animal feed. Early research suggests it could improve digestion and overall animal health. Imagine being able to reduce waste from biorefineries while simultaneously creating a valuable resource for livestock farmers.
Right?
It's a win-win situation.
It's a fascinating example of how biochar can contribute to a circular economy, turning what was once considered waste into a valuable resource. And this concept of reducing waste and creating interconnected systems resonates throughout all of the stories we've covered today. What are your thoughts on this connection?
Well, it's truly inspiring to see how biochar is being explored and implemented across diverse fields. From revolutionizing farming practices to cleaning up our environment and even finding its way into livestock feed, biochar embodies the principles of a circular economy. And by closing the loop and minimizing waste, we can create a more sustainable and resilient future for generations to come.
Absolutely. And with that insightful observation, we'll wrap up the first segment of This Week in Biochar. Stay tuned as we continue our deep dive into the latest developments in this exciting field.
It's remarkable how biochar research seems to uncover new applications all the time.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the material's versatility.
It makes you wonder what other surprises are in store for biochar.
Right.
Thinking about those almond shells just go to waste,
Right.
turning them into a resource that improves soil health is brilliant.
Absolutely.
It really highlights the potential of biochar in creating a circular economy, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it's not just limited to agriculture.
Oh,
Did you know researchers are exploring the use of biochar in concrete?
really?
Yeah.
How does that work?
It turns out that adding biochar to the concrete mix can actually enhance its strength and durability. Biochar's porous structure helps absorb excess water during the curing process,
Okay.
resulting in a denser, stronger concrete.
So it's not just about adding a random ingredient.
Right.
Biochar's unique properties are being used to improve a completely different material.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. What about the sustainability aspect? Does biochar bring anything to the table there?
Definitely remember how we talked about biochar's ability to sequester carbon?
Yeah.
Well, that applies to concrete as well.
Hmm.
By adding biochar to the mix, you're essentially locking away carbon that would otherwise be released into the atmosphere.
So you're creating a building material that's not only stronger, but also helps fight climate change.
Exactly.
That's a game changer for the construction industry.
And some studies even suggest that biochar can make concrete more resistant to freeze-thaw cycles and chemical attack,
Oh, wow.
further increasing its lifespan.
It's incredible how something as simple as biochar can have such a wide range of applications. It makes me even more curious about other potential uses we haven't even discovered yet.
The possibilities seem endless. Now, let's circle back to something we touched on earlier, biochar in animal feed. Have there been any further developments in that area?
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm particularly interested in that aspect. Have there been any specific studies on its effectiveness?
There have been.
Oh.
There's a recent study that looked at the effects of feeding biochar to dairy cows,
Okay.
specifically focusing on methane emissions.
That's intriguing. We know methane emissions from livestock are a significant contributor to greenhouse gases.
Right.
Were there any positive outcomes?
The results were quite promising. The study found that cows fed biochar produced significantly less methane compared to a control group.
That's encouraging news. How does biochar work to reduce methane in cows?
While the exact mechanisms are still being studied, there are a couple of theories.
Okay.
One is that biochar might alter the microbial populations in the cow's rumen,
Okay.
the first chamber of their stomach where a lot of methane is produced.
Okay.
It's similar to how biochar affects the microbial community in soil.
So it's like introducing a beneficial change in the cow's digestive system.
Precisely, another theory suggests that biochar might bind to certain compounds in the rumen that contribute to methane production, effectively preventing them from being converted into methane. It acts as a sort of methane blocker.
Fascinating. So in addition to reducing methane emissions, could there be other benefits for the cows themselves?
There's some evidence suggesting that biochar might improve overall cow health,
Okay.
which could indirectly contribute to reduced methane emissions.
That's a compelling argument for incorporating biochar into livestock feed. Not only could it help mitigate climate change, but it could potentially improve animal welfare and make livestock farming more sustainable. It seems like there's a lot of potential there.
It's definitely an area worth watching this. Research highlights how biochar can offer solutions that benefit both the environment and the economy.
It's remarkable how something as seemingly simple as biochar can have such a profound impact. It really underscores the importance of continued research and development in this field. We've covered a lot of ground today, from almond orchards to contaminated soil concrete and even cow feed. It seems like biochar holds the key to a more sustainable future. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. It's clear that biochar has moved beyond its initial niche and is becoming a key player in various industries. It's exciting to see how researchers and entrepreneurs are finding innovative ways to harness its power. Who knows what groundbreaking applications we'll discover in the years to come.
Speaking of groundbreaking applications, there was one area we haven't touched upon yet, using biochar to filter and purify water. That's right, biochar's amazing structure with all those tiny pores, makes it a fantastic filter. I imagine it works in a similar way to how it cleans up contaminated soil.
You're exactly right. Biochar can trap pollutants and impurities in water, removing everything from heavy metals and pesticides to bacteria and viruses.
So it's like having a natural water purifier. Are there any real-world applications for this?
Absolutely. Biochar filters are being used in various settings, from household water filtration systems to large-scale water treatment plants. They're even being used in developing countries to provide access to clean drinking water.
Wow. It's amazing how biochar can address such a fundamental human need. This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the sheer versatility of this material.
It has been a fascinating exploration. Before we wrap up, let's take some time to address questions from our listeners. We received some really insightful ones this week.
Sounds good. Our first question comes from Sarah in Oregon. She's interested in using biochar in her garden, but is concerned about potential heavy metal contamination. She wants to know how to ensure the biochar she's using is safe.
That's a great question, Sarah, and it's a valid concern. As we discussed earlier, the source material used to make biochar can definitely impact its quality and safety. The good news is that there are steps you can take to minimize any risks.
What would you recommend?
First, look for biochar that's been certified by a reputable third-party organization. Several certification programs test for heavy metal content, contaminants, and overall quality.
Okay.
It's similar to looking for organic certification on food products.
Right, so that certification provides an extra layer of assurance. What else should gardeners like Sarah keep in mind?
It's always wise to purchase biochar from a trusted supplier who can provide detailed information about the feedstock and production process. Transparency is key. You want to know where your biochar comes from and how it was made.
Makes sense. Knowing the origins and production methods can give you more confidence in the product.
Absolutely. And if you're ever unsure, don't hesitate to consult with a local gardening expert or agricultural extension agent. They can offer tailored advice based on your specific needs and help you choose the right biochar for your garden.
That's great advice. Now let's move on to our second question. This one comes from Michael in California. He's curious about the longevity of biochar's carbon sequestration abilities. He asks if it's a permanent solution for storing carbon in the soil.
That's a question scientists are actively researching, Michael. What we know so far is that biochar is incredibly stable compared to other organic matter. Think of it this way. While a compost pile decomposes relatively quickly, biochar can persist in the soil for hundreds, even thousands of years.
Wow. So its ability to store carbon lasts much longer than other organic materials.
Exactly. That's why it's considered such a promising tool for long-term carbon storage. But it's important to remember that no solution is truly permanent. The longevity of biochar depends on several factors, including the type of biochar used, soil conditions, and environmental factors like temperature and rainfall.
So while it's incredibly durable, there's a chance it could eventually break down.
It's possible, but even if it does, the rate of decomposition is significantly slower compared to other organic materials. Essentially, biochar buys us valuable time in the fight against climate change.
That's reassuring. While it might not be a silver bullet, it's a valuable tool in our efforts to mitigate climate change and enhance soil health.
Precisely, and research in this field is constantly evolving. We're likely to learn even more about the long-term benefits of biochar in the years to come.
It's been an incredible journey exploring the diverse world of biochar with you today. From a teenage CEO revolutionizing farming to the potential of biochar in animal feed, concrete, and even water purification, it's clear that this humble material is making waves across a multitude of industries. What stands out to you the most after this deep dive?
The sheer range of applications is astounding. It speaks to the innovative spirit driving biochar research and the growing recognition of its potential to create a more sustainable future. I'm particularly excited to see your research on biochar-enriched animal feed develops and what role it might play in reducing livestock's environmental impact.
This deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about as well. I encourage our listeners to explore the links to the original articles provided in the show notes for a more in-depth look at the research. Until next time, keep those questions coming and stay curious about the ever-evolving world of biochar. This is This Week in Biochar, signing off.